Hey everyone, I'm going to spend a moment talking about something that I call the equipment fallacy. This isn't a really popular topic, so I expect to get a little bit of hate for this, but I think it's something that I've noticed. It's definitely something I've noticed more when it comes to firearms and getting deeper into this hobby, but you'll notice it in any hobby that you do as well. I challenge you to keep an eye out for it, said Musashi. It's not the work of a famous swordsmith, nothing like that. Have you used it in battle, or do you carry it for the usual purposes? I haven't used it on the battlefield. There's nothing special about it. The best you could say is that it's better than nothing. Looking directly into Musashi's eyes, Kosuke then added, How do you want it polished? How do I want it polished? What do you mean? Do you want it sharpened so it'll cut well? Well, it's a sword. The cleaner it cuts, the better. I suppose so, agreed Kosuke with a defeated sigh. And the focus of this is going to be on firearms, so I'm going to use all of my analogies because that's where a lot of my channel is. That's a hobby that I know really well, and I can use to illustrate this, but you can transfer it to other hobbies. When I started shooting, I got kind of knee-deep in the caliber wars. Before I even bought my first pistol, I was thinking, what's the right caliber that I should have for a pistol, for a concealed carry pistol? And I was thinking about 9mm, and then I was thinking about 40. 40 was really big at the time. And I was thinking about 357 SIG. Little asterisk, 357 SIG is still probably my favorite pistol caliber. But I almost never shoot it because it's hard to find. Anyway, just a brief aside there. But pretty much all pistol calibers, all like self-defense pistol calibers, I'm not talking about 22 LR and I'm not talking about 454 Casull. Self-defense pistols generally are in the muzzle energy realm of about 300 to about 500 pound-feet. And while there are differences between calibers and how they perform and how they expand in different media and all that, generally speaking, they're all the same.
Stand by. Up!
John Carrera's video on active self-protection, I don't know if it's an extra video or not, I'll link it down below, where he talks about carrying an extra magazine. He kind of makes this clear. It doesn't matter what you're carrying as long as you're carrying something, and if you're a citizen as opposed to a police officer, so concealed carry person, you're never statistically going to need to reload your pistol. You're going to shoot, it's going to empty, and the fight's going to be over one way or another, kind of at that point. Another man might have been discouraged and left, but Musashi's curiosity held him there. There was something appealing about this man. Not wit nor intelligence, but a rough natural goodness like that of a karatsu sake jar or a tea bowl by Nonko. Just as pottery often has a blemish evocative of its closeness to the earth, Kosuke had, in a semi-bald spot on his temple, a lesion of some sort, which he'd covered with salve. While attempting to conceal his growing fascination, Musashi said, What is there to keep you from polishing my sword? Is it of such poor quality that you can't put a good edge on it? Of course not. You are the owner. You know as well as I do it's a perfectly good bison sword. I know you want it sharpened for the purpose of cutting people. Is there anything wrong with that? That's what they all say. What's wrong with wanting me to fix a sword so it'll cut better? If the sword cuts, they're happy. But a man bringing in a sword to be polished naturally wants just a minute. Kosuke raised his hand. I'll take some time to explain. First, I'd like you to take another look at the sign on the front of my shop. It says, Souls Polished. Or at least I think so. Is there any other way of reading the characters? No, you'll notice it doesn't say a word about polishing swords. My business is polishing the souls of the samurai who come in, not their weapons. People don't understand, but that's what I was taught when I studied sword polishing. I see, said Musashi, although he didn't really. Since I try to abide by my master's teachings, I refuse to polish the swords of samurais who take pleasure in killing people. Well, you have a point there. Tell me, who was this master of yours? Guns that were designed in early 1900s versus guns that were designed in 1975 versus guns that were designed in the 80s or 90s or last week. Even though guns last week might have a couple newer features, they're all pretty much the same. Obviously, reliability is one of those critical factors that we want to take into account, but there's a lot of reliable guns from the 1970s and 1980s that you really shouldn't be discounting. So when it comes to actually picking out your first gun or another gun, what you have or what you can find is usually good enough. Don't spend so much energy thinking about what the perfect equipment is, because once you're 80% of the way there, you're good. In here, there's a really hard pill to swallow, and I like the ending of almost every Grantham video because he says this over and over and over again, and it's completely true. Equipment will not make you better. Training is what makes you better. In fact, there's even a different side of this. Equipment, the next level equipment, until you train with it, it's going to make you worse. It's going to give you more mental load on trying to figure out how to do something. If I'm really, really, really good at using an AK and I go over and I start using an AR, until I'm really comfortable with the AR, that different system of put your finger here, hold it like this, this is the kind of tension you put on the gun, this is how you release the magazine, this is how you clear a malfunction, this is how you put the gun on safe, this is how you take the gun off safe. All of these things are going to make you more efficient and effective, and until you have that training to build up those good habits and get rid of those bad habits, you are not going to be as smooth and accurate and reliable as an operator, meaning a person, not like a special forces operator, but an operator of a machine. You're going to be much more efficient operating that machine when you have familiarity, when you've trained with it. Speaking a little bit more to the point of equipment, one of my favorite books is Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. And Musashi is a very large book with Bible-thin pages. But it's worth it. It's worth every word, every minute. If you don't like reading big books like me, get the audiobook version. It's really good. I'll look up the narrator and annotate that in the description as well. But it's fantastic. And he pronounces Japanese words much better than I ever can. I'm going to read a section for you guys out of this book from a chapter about, you can see where it is toward the end, it's in book 5, I believe, and it's called The Soul Polisher. And of all the chapters in this book, this is probably my favorite one. I'm not going to give away any spoilers to the book. The basic premise is Musashi is a samurai, and he's going on his journey. He's trying to learn the way of the samurai. So he meets up with this one guy called, and I got to look at my notes here, Zoshino Kozuke. And Zoshino Kozuke is a soul polisher. Musashi walks into this place, and it looks like a sword polishing shop. In fact, there's actually nothing on the outside of the shop that makes it look like it's a place like that. But he walks in, and he gets talking to this man, and the man starts talking about what he does, and Musashi's like, "Can you sharpen my sword, please?" And I'll just read a little bit from the book. The sword, or the weapon, is not really that important. The important part is the person who is using that. The soul of the person who is wielding the weapon is much, much, much more important than the lineage of the weapon, or who made it, or who's handled it, or how many battles it's been in. And that plays out a lot more even at the end of the book. There's a very poignant kind of comment on this in the last couple of chapters. I'm not going to give away the spoiler, but it's there. If you really want to dive deep into any hobby, if you want to dive deep into firearms, especially like a warrior protector kind of mindset, I highly recommend Musashi. I'm recording this after the tragic school shooting in Texas, and I hate that I'm able to kind of like timeline my videos relative to certain tragedies that have happened in the world and this country. It's how it is, unfortunately, and I wish everyone the very best, especially those of us who are parents and dealing with the very conflicting landscape of emotions that come with having elementary school children in the school system. Yeah.